Welcome to View from the Top. I'm Modele Sharafa Yusuf. Thank you for joining us. Radio broadcast started in Nigeria in 1933 with the introduction of the Radio Distribution System, RDS, a reception base for the British Broadcasting Corporation under the British colonial government at the time. Following several developments, including Nigeria's independence, the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria was established in 1978, and with the creation of states, FRCN grew very quickly and spread across the country, presently having 42 stations in 28 states. While new media, the internet and social media, are threatening the traditional media, television and radio are still major sources of news and information because of their wider reach. As you probably have guessed, I will be discussing broadcasting today, and the DGFRCN is my guest. Thank you very much, Malam Ladan Sal.
Thank you very much for being with you, Modele.
And thank you again for joining us. Here is a brief biography before we start our conversation. Ladan Salihu was born in Bauchi on November 20, 1961. He got a bachelor's degree in mass communications from the Bayero University, Kano, and started his broadcasting career as a news assistant at Bauchi Radio Corporation. He was at various times the chief press secretary to the Bauchi state governor and state house correspondent for the NTA and later the Voice of America. In the year 2000, he became assistant director, National Broadcasting Commission, and later its zonal director in Kano and Kaduna. He was appointed Director General of the FRCN in March 2014. Malam Ladan Salihu is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Administration and was awarded an honorary doctorate degree in communication arts by the Commonwealth University of Belize. Let me start by asking you, is public broadcasting in decline?
No, I don't think so. I think, well, first of all, let me appreciate your time, Modele, and in doing so to tell you, in all honesty, public broadcasting is on the rise. When you look at the history of broadcasting, radio to be precise, in Nigeria, like you rightfully observed in your introduction, from 1933 to 1978, when the then NBC, gave birth to Radio Nigeria, and by extraction also took out the television aspect and created Nigerian Television Authority to this moment we're talking about. Let me give you, a bit of the picture in Africa. We have about 315 million radio sets in Africa. In Nigeria, we have about 35 million radio sets. The list in that statistics is in Gabon, that has about 60,000 radio sets. The percentage of radio listeners and broadcasters in Africa, and especially in Nigeria, is on the rise. So to answer your question, the popularity of radio has not diminished over the years. And when you talk about radio broadcasting in Nigeria, yes, we have deregulation. Yes, we have the new, private radio stations. We have state radio stations. But I still believe and know, as most Nigerians will agree, that radio broadcasting is on the rise, and we still, as Radio Nigeria, occupy the preeminent position as the #1 public broadcaster, and that has remained unassailable over the years, and I think it will remain so, mainly because we are adapting to the challenges and the changing realities and the empirical demands of radio within the context of our own social strata. So I think it's on the rise.
One of the changing realities of broadcasting is the transition to digital broadcasting. Nigeria had previously set 3 targets for the transition from analog to digital broadcasting. every time the goalpost has been shifted. How ready is Nigeria for digital broadcast, especially since the ITU has ruled out further deadline extensions?
Whether or not we are ready is not, is of course an issue, but I think we must be ready. We must be ready because the issue of transition from digital, from analog to digital, broadcasting, the world will not wait for Nigeria. Essentially, it compresses the channels, the VHF and the, UHF bands from, I think, UHF from 470 to 880 thereabout is compressed from 470 to plus or minus 168% of the frequency on that band. It means that the compression process has given rise, will give rise to more channels, television and radio. Of course, you know that you can clone an analog channel to get, 6, and in some cases, really 12 stations on one channel. So if you aggregate the number of TV stations, for instance, in Nigeria, and I think now it's in the region of about 140 to about 170, TV stations in the country. NTA alone has about 109. So if you take about 60 to 70 more with the states and private owners, you will discover that if you were to clone every channel into, 6 or more stations, you will have a preponderance of stations that will probably take you to between 500 to 1,000% of the existing channels. And so you have a lot of challenges with that. The issue of content, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But specifically on the aspect of digitization, we cannot afford to be left behind. There are constraints, there are challenges.
What are the consequences of not meeting the deadline?
Well, the consequences will mean you, as the biggest economy, the number one economy in Africa, you're not, going along global best practices. As the largest, nation, black nation on earth, with all the track records that we've had over the years and the popularity and credibility that we enjoy, in Africa and on the international scene, will be affected. We've reached a point where we cannot back out, and we don't have any room for maneuver. It's an issue of frequency administration, allocation, and management. We don't decide the frequency, to get. It is controlled and operated by the Intelsats of this world, the ITUs of this world. We are signatories to the international convention, and we must operate within the set rules of the convention. And I'm happy, really, the way Nigeria is going about it. The National Broadcasting Commission, my colleague Emeka Mba, is doing a very good work of midwifing the transition process with the switchover activity in Jos, and the licensing of the carriers. NTA is one of them. The midwifery process, or the husbandry process of it, is really commendable. And I think if we follow the roadmap as laid down by the NBC, we will get there. My only quarrel with the whole system is that here you have an ITU that sets modalities for switch over, the dates, the timelines, and the guidelines, and what have you. And to switch from analog to digital is a huge task. It involves a lot of money. You need to inject a lot of capital to have, set-top boxes, because you can't go into every home in Nigeria and ask them to change their TV sets to HDMI or whatever, so that you'll be able to receive the signals. you have to get set-top boxes and they cost money. But clearly I would have expected that the ITU will say, all right, the frequency that will be reserved, that will be utilized by other those who require it, either telephony or any aspect of communication that they will make money from. We should have also some aspects of that funding coming especially into third world countries and sub-Saharan Africa to aid and cushion the effects of financial burden on governments with respect to the transition. But, all said and done, I still believe that we are on the right course. I believe that the roadmap to digitization as laid down by the NBC is quite on track, and we're happy about it.
We have to take a break at this point. We ask that you please join us again.